going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. Now today I'm bringing to you my top 5 cards that I feel really need a fucking reprint, because the cards on this list have just pretty much been long and forgotten, but a lot of them have had a lot of resurgence lately in the meta, and I feel that they really need a reprint because now they're just commanding outrageous prices when they really shouldn't be doing so. So starting off with number 5, it's Into the Void. Now Into the Void only has 2 printings, both from the same set. One is an ultra rare, one is an ultimate rare. And the thing with Into the Void is it's a very powerful card. It's actually a very good draw card, especially now that cards like Upstart Goblin are now at 1. And especially now that Infernoids are actually getting some light in the meta thanks to the new Grass is Greener card. The fact that Into the Void is considered a Void card means it has synergy with all of the other Void cards that Infernoid decks now play. And that's very, very huge. But the thing is, because this card has been pretty much like this for so long, when this card came out, no one was really playing Into the Void, and then people discovered that there was different decks like Cleafort Demise and such, decks that didn't really focus on having a hand, because with a card like Card of Demise, you're gonna lose your hand in the end phase anyway, so if you play 3 copies of Into the Void, like, who gives a shit? But if you get to your main combo, that's all you really care about. So Into the Void had some light with Cleaforts, now with Infernoids, and back when Cleaforts, when people started realizing they were using it in that deck, it just shot up in price because there's such a low supply for the card for everyone who wanted to play the deck. Now we're going to see the same thing happen with Infernoid, because it's just 3 extra draw cards that Infernoid can use to either draw and continue their engine, or to just throw away with any of their Void spell and trap cards that they need to. So the fact that this card still has gone without a reprint is really perplexing. It's just, now that Konami is reprinting so many cards so at a much more often pace, it's just mind-boggling to me that this is one of the cards that's been left off the radar. So I definitely feel it needs a reprint. But moving on to number 4, we have a goodie. This one is Utopia the Lightning. Now Utopia the Lightning only has 2 printings, and technically it only has 1 per region, because it has 1 printing in a manga in America, and then it has a special edition printing as a super rare in Europe in one of the special edition sets. But that's it. If you didn't pick up your Utopia out of the manga when it was like $8 or $10, or if you didn't get it out of a special edition that you bought for maybe $10, Utopia the Lightning currently sits at a $25 to $30 price tag, and I personally think that's a little bit outrageous considering the competitive relevance that Utopia the Lightning has. Utopia the Lightning is an answer to so many different types of boards that basically if you're playing any rank 4 deck, you should be playing Utopia, and you should be playing Utopia the Lightning if you can fit it in there. And the fact that this card does not have an actual reprint is is really unfortunate, because this is just a very solid card all around, and it hurts a lot of players, especially the more casual or budget players, because if they want to play a deck that uses this card, they have to shell out a lot of money. You know, Utopia, just regular plain old Utopia, is maybe $1, if that, depending on the rarity you buy. But Utopia the Lightning, like, good fucking luck, $20 to $30 is a little bit high for this card, considering the way it was printed to begin with. I definitely think that, you know, maybe the next Megatin, or something like that, maybe like some special, you know, Utopic Zexal, like, fun pack, I don't fucking know. Just throw Utopia the Lightning in there, just to make it much more accessible for a lot of players who never got their the opportunity to get their hands on one. Now moving on to number 3, we have Saiframe Lord Omega. Saiframe Lord Omega only has 1 printing out of High Speed Riders from last year, and because of that, Saiframe Lord Omega currently sits at a $60 price tag. Arguably, Saiframe Lord Omega is the best generic level 8 synchro in the game. Its abilities to continuously recycle banished cards, as well as banishing cards out of your opponent's hand. The card is just fucking phenomenal in every single aspect. Outside of the Saiframe archetype, obviously you're going to run 3 in the actual deck, But outside of that, you see players just playing one because the card is just so good. It's a very difficult card to out unless you have something like a kaiju. It's just an incredibly well-designed card. But the fact that it's still sitting at $60 over a year later is just very unfortunate, and it just really stops some players, especially people who just want to play like the Saiframe deck. Like, don't worry about the competitive players, because competitive players only maybe need like one, for instance, right? So like, you know, if you have like the money and you're playing competitively, shelling out for an Omega isn't the worst thing in the world. But like, if you're playing casually and you want to play the actual Saiframe deck, hell, even if you want to play the Saiframe deck competitively, you need 3 of this motherfucker, which is gonna run you $180 as it currently sits, and that's just fucking ridiculous. So, in my opinion, I definitely feel like this card needs a reprint. Just whatever set that, if they do like a High Speed Riders 2 or like some like take on High Speed Riders that's gonna have like all those cards like Terror Top and stuff again, they should definitely reprint it, even at a lower rarity or something like that. But this card has not had a single other printing outside of High Speed Riders. You know, at least the other cards, like, at least Into the Void has an ultra rare and an ultimate rare printing. At least Utopia the Lightning has a super and an ultra. Saiframe Lord Omega doesn't have that, and just like Saiframe Lord Omega, our number 2 pick is also in the same boat, and that card is MX Saber Invoker. Now, unless you aren't familiar by now, MX Saber Invoker is a key staple piece of any Zodiac deck, at least until Terror Top gets hit. But for the time being, until that happens, if you're playing Zodiacs in one form or another, you're going to be playing Terror Top more often than not, and if you are, you need to have an MX Saber Invoker. And Invoker's price, ever since it was discovered that, you know, you could do all these crazy plays with Zodiacs back in the OCG, MX Saber Invoker's price has just been going all over the fucking place. You know, Invoker hasn't really seen competitive relevance since Madolche, which was really the only other deck that it was very good in. But outside of that, you know, it kind of was just sitting at like maybe a $15 to $20 card because it's only had one printing in Order of Chaos, very similarly to Saiframe Lord Omega. But now that it's in one of, if not the best deck of the entire format for the next several months to come, that just shot the demand for the card through the roof, which lowered the supply and just made the price just skyrocket. Now you're lucky to find one of these for maybe $60. It's been going as high as 70, sometimes 75, depending on when the market is, when you check the market. But MX Saber Invoker, again, this card has not been reprinted since Order of Chaos. That is just years that have gone by without this card needing a reprint. So I definitely feel that this card should get a reprint. So, for the number 1 pick, this is probably actually going to be a card that you weren't expecting whatsoever, because if you were thinking Minerva's actually not on my list, and the reason for that is because Minerva's only about a year old, roughly, and it usually takes 2 to 3 years before they reprint prize cards, and we've kind of seen that in the past with a majority of the other prize cards. You know, we finally got Giant Hand and Dig-Verjack in the Gold Series, but that was a couple years after they were actually, you know, awarded as prize cards to players. But one prize card was actually skipped over that I think a lot of people forgot about, and that card is Blood Memphis. Now, in terms of competitive relevance, I don't think people are really just craving a Blood Memphis for their extra deck. I mean, this isn't a Saiframe Lord Omega. This isn't like, you know, a Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. This isn't a Stardust Dragon. There are definitely some better level 8 synchros out there, but Blood Memphis is still a very solid card all around. Just, you know, it's a little bit circumstantial. But I find it fucking hilarious how they reprinted Giant Hand and they reprinted Dig-Verjack before they even considered reprinting Blood Memphis. They just, like, skipped the fuck over it and they didn't even, like, care because they're like, who really needs a Blood Memphis? Let's just give them Dig-Verjack and Giant Hand. Everyone wants a Giant Hand, right? And, like, no one's playing fucking Dig-Verjack. Like, at least Giant Hand is playable, but Dig-Verjack, like, you never see that card played at all. But going back onto Blood Memphis, I really think it's doing the card a disservice that it was never actually properly reprinted for people to get their hands on that don't already have one as a prize card. Again, it doesn't really have a lot of competitive relevance, but I feel like if you're going to reprint the prize cards a few years after they were actually awarded, you should at least stay consistent in what you're going to do and not just skip ones entirely. You know, if I'm going to make that argument, Ascension the Sky Dragon also is kind of falling in the same boat now, but at least, you know, Ascension was kind of after Giant Hands, so if anything, Ascension would be the next prize card to be reprinted before Minerva, but it's Konami, so if they skip Blood Memphis, you know, they could skip Ascension. Hell, they could even skip Minerva for all we know. So, guys, that's going to do it for my top 5. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think should be and needs to be reprinted. I'd really love to hear your opinions on that. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and also be sure to back me on Patreon, because just by pledging $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thank you guys so much again. We'll see you next time.